West Hollywood, from a park. Right? In case you don't know, living the homeless life. And what this is allowing me to do is to really actively utilize my imagination for the first time in a really long time. I was able to do it a little bit while I was married, in between jobs, and I believe like the only person who knew that I smoked weed over the Thanksgiving weekend was my wife. And all of a sudden, a place that she was getting a loan for where I was working, called Wellpack, all of a sudden they got a surprise DOT inspection after I smoked some weed. I'm really starting to believe that actually she had a lot more with causing my consternation than I actually knew to begin with. I think she was doing a lot of this LARPing. I knew a lot more. In case you don't know, I'm 57 years old, and I found myself canceled. And I found my music buried, my writing was buried. They tried to bury me. They ran what's known as suicide ops through the smartphone. Too smart for its own good phone, right? That's what appears to be the case, okay? So they're able to do this. Now, you guys ever watch Timcast? You guys wonder why, like, people are, well, I watch Timcast, not all the time, but you ever wonder why we're watching a bunch of people who dress like South Park characters talk about sociology? You ever wonder about that? And I think we need people like my perspective. I mean, listen, if you want to give Tom Segura another podcast, you go ahead and give it to him, right? Because I think he has about 3 right now. I think his wife has 2. Okay, yeah, and I think Bert Kreischer has 7. Okay, so if you want to go listen to those shows, go ahead. Like I said, I make fun of people like Shuley. The guy talks about Stuttering John. He gets 80,000 views for shit-talking Stuttering John. You know, I kind of call that shooting fish in a barrel. I don't really care about Stuttering John. Back when I was listening to the Howard Stern show, you're talking about the double aughts. That's how long ago that was. And again, if he's got some niche audience, good for him. But what we talk about on my show is a lot more interesting. And if you want to make fun of me, you want to rag on me, whatever you want to do, go right ahead. But I actually talk about the shows that I watch. I don't talk about the other side of the aisle. I make fun of things that I actually know about, and I'm not afraid to call people out. And so when I watch Timcast, I see a bunch of people who dress like they're on South Park, like they're characters on South Park, and they're talking about sociological issues. What happened? What is going on? And they're all respondent to media deep blue stories. That's what they do. These are untraceable stories. And it used to be that alt media, especially here on YouTube, I'm YouTube exclusive. I only watch shows that are on YouTube. I watch clips from old films. I think YouTube is the greatest source of information ever to come along in years, in millennia. And I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm happy to be here. But I also criticize what I watch. I criticize ideologies that I actually share. I think what's happening is that it's been very well proven through Brookings people. It's in my playlist, by the way, at Brookings Institute. Take a look at some of the stuff in my playlist. It is proven that it is the AI that's ascribed to you through Facebook and Instagram, no longer Twitter, okay? That it is the AI that begins to feed you information. And I just want to say, I think it's in the book Brave New World by that hipster, Aldous Huxley. He's all about the suchness. Take a look. I listen to Aldous Huxley lectures on, and I'm not saying he's completely wrong about everything, right? Because he is kind of the basis of one of the characters. Him and Terry Southern are basis of characters in one of the last punk rock TV shows that you'll ever watch, because it's going to go from punk rock to rap. You will see this get made. We are willing it into existence, and that's how we are able to manifest this stuff. Okay? That's how we're going to create this show. We are creating it through the Eggyverse, as I like to call it. And what's the Eggyverse? The Eggyverse is the everything. It's the ether. It's Wi-Fi. Okay? It's morphic resonance. Okay? It's the divine spark that comes into your mind. Now, some people would say, that having sin is having more than what you need. Well, before Christianity, they used to actually know that being ignorant, not seeking out knowledge, is a sin, right? But that's why they created early on, they didn't create, but part of the Plato dialogues was Socrates, who they killed. And don't forget, Socrates believed in a holy guardian angel. They had many of these beliefs early on, that he got in trouble with the sophists. And who are sophists? Well, it looks like it's people in the mainstream media. They're people who make things sound rational, but in reality, they're not, right? Don't think of an elephant in your pajamas. That's what I always say. The person who comes out with the information first wins. You see? Let me put the information out there first, and then the person that you cherry-pick this information about is left scrambling. Wait, no, wait, it's out of context, I swear. Right? So this is part of what Socrates was talking about in his discussions with the sophists. It might have been the Last Supper, his Last Supper. I don't know. I use a powdered espresso, and I love it. Thank you, Starbucks. I don't go into Starbucks. I just fill up with tap water and buy Starbucks products because I'm brand loyal. So we're going to be talking about Scorpius XL today. Scorpius XL is a narrative that could be its own film. The reason why I talk about film is because it's the all-encompassing medium. You have music, you have visuals, right? The only thing you don't have is the old sniffer there, right? Okay? So and that's how I talk, and that's how I write. And if you take a look at some of my writing, it's very visual. All right? My earliest experiences was my oldest sister, who's a mezzo-soprano. She was a prodigy on the fiddle. And when she was 5 years old, she could play the fiddle. That's what they called it. They called it the fiddle. And there was so much trauma in our household that the only thing she was able to carry on was being a mezzo-soprano, going to church, singing in the choir. That's why I might not be a Christian. I might not be a Christian, but I have no problem with religions of all kinds. It's looking to me like I'm more of a Gnostic. I believe in the gnosis. I believe in this knowledge, not sophistry, not something, some specious comment that sounds good. I actually believe in concrete knowledge. Okay? That's why guys like Brian Cox, what they're talking about are mathematical equations, and people don't understand this. And that's where we're at in our story. Yay! Walter, the film comes out in 1963. Why? Because the guys driving the cars in the film, the cars are from 1962. And people can't wrap their minds around it, how he was able to put a car from 1963, 62, 63, in a film that just came out. They can't wrap their mind around. It's kind of like, what's this, the one with Tom Hanks? I like that director too, Robert Zemeckis. I like Robert Zemeckis. I like those films. I like wholesome films. But what we're doing with my story is going to be a little bit more grittier. It's more Showtime. It's more HBO. It's more Sopranos. It's more, you understand? It's going to have a little bit of grit. It's not going to be so polished. Okay? You got to have that dirt under the fingernails. And so, what Walter's going to be doing at this point in his life, they're going to put these cars in the film. It's called Scorpius XL. XL means 40. I got this because I worked on Super Bowl 40, Super Bowl XL. I was working there. I got to work on that in Detroit. I'm a Detroiter. I guess it's just happenstance. Oh, well, I could be from anywhere, I guess, huh? I could be from anywhere. It doesn't really matter, right? I'm a human being on the planet Earth, apparently. I'm a transplant here to Los Angeles. And I was a transplant to New York City. And apparently some people from Detroit's got some beef with me, but they're too phony to ever bring it up around me. They're just passive aggressive. Oh my. I talk about a lot of things on this show, guys. And when I give you a point of view and a perspective, it's a perspective that you're not getting from anywhere else. And I talk about this alt media that's right here on YouTube and how they're just aping and parroting the mainstream. Nobody's thinking outside. Nobody's forming any hypothesis that's not already supplied to them from another source. I am the only one who can create this hypothesis, it's more than one, on this show, okay? It appears that I've been canceled in real life. It appears that I can't grow my channel. It appears that I can't take donations from you, so I'm not on the grift. Look at me, man. I do a show every single day, both regardless and irregardless. So that's what I do here. Now, when I was formulating a lot of these ideas, I'm not talking about the show Linoleum Blown Apart that we are willing into existence. But I was talking about the Manson Industrial Complex. Remember that? And I was talking about this whole Manson narrative. Take a look at Quentin Tarantino's last film. I like him because he takes kind of schlocky B movies, grindhouse movies, and he puts A-listers in them. right? I mean, I think it's pretty genius. I think he found a great niche there. And he was affected by this whole Manson thing, okay? And so I was affected when I was a little kid. One of the first Beatles album I got was the White Album. You take a look at the Beatles, and they recorded Let It Be and Abbey Road, and they switched them. They put out one before the other. That's how much they were recording. Take a look at, God, his name's not George Martin. I can't remember the guy's name. I know his wife was in a punk band. I just thought of it too. Okay, you see this new Beatles from the guy who did J.R.R. Tolkien, right? I remember Dead Alive. I know him as the director for Dead Alive. I love Dead Alive. It's a rockabilly grindhouse, gross out film. He's Australian director. He did all this. He put together all this Beatles footage. Okay, the Beatles were prolific. They tried to use them in this fake narrative about Manson right here in LA. Pretty scary stuff. Everybody glommed onto it, and then come 40 years later, we find out that it's mainly a haka-hui. People did die, yeah. People died, and that's pretty scary stuff. Take a look at the guy, Roman Polanski. One of the greatest films is not only The Ninth Gate, he's done amazing films. I mean, truly, truly amazing stuff. And he had to flee the country because he was set up twice. Once his wife's murdered, and the second time, he's set up, you know, with a young adult. Okay? So, again, I am right here in the belly of the beast. I am not only putting my life at risk, but I'm putting my health at risk. I'm risking everything as a 57-year-old man to come here, to do my show, and to work on Linoleum Blown Apart. Okay? So we take crazy aspects like that, and I don't really use too much of that in Linoleum Blown Apart. When I do use something, I usually tell you, like the Ian Holm character, who's going to be playing, he's an Ian Holm style character who's going to be playing this kind of crazy professor. It could be somebody a little bit different. You know, you could take any old-time actor and, you know, and use them in these roles. And I just try to be as descriptive as possible. So as the title today, I told you, we discovered through the lyrics of a Beatles song that John and Yoko were more than likely smuggling opium, just like in the film Midnight Express, he said that he's smuggling hashish. I mean, give me a break. I think maybe he was smuggling something else. I don't know. I never read the book. You know, I'm not trying to disparage anyone. Maybe he was smuggling hashish. But if you smuggled opium and you brought it here, they could turn that opium into heroin. And when I bought heroin in New York City, it was always called a bundle. And in the song Ballad of John and Yoko, they were traveling all over. What did they have? They had the French Connection. And in the song, they mentioned going to Spain, going to Amsterdam, okay? It's quite possible that they were smuggling drugs, this opium, coming back to America. That is more than likely why that they had an FBI jacket, okay? They had, oh, and by the way, I really love Les Claypool and Sean Lennon. They started a band. It's called the Lennon Claypool Experience. Excellent stuff. That's the kind of music that I'm into. Okay, I'm into rock and roll, classic rock, just any subgenres of that, going into punk rock. That's what's going into this property. And so we can speculate that John Lennon was doing cocaine. Why? Because he was hanging out with Tony King, who was well-known doing cocaine in the 1970s. And during his song Come Together, he said he shoot Coca-Cola. I am the real thing, not Coke or Coca-Cola. Right? That's what I say on my show. I try to come up with a lot of Miliusisms. Why? Because I love John Milius. And maybe in this day and age, we wouldn't have any of these Milius films, right? You have to have this male presence. You can't deny this male archetype, because that's all you're talking about. You're talking about archetypes. You can't destroy it. And in Gnostic thought, okay, you have the God of this world, and that's where they get, you know, I'm a God, don't have any other God before me, I am a jealous God, okay? And then you have what's known as the pleroma, and the pleroma that's surrounding us, which is surrounding our galaxy. It doesn't matter what I think his name is Brian Cox, has to say. He's an astrophysicist. Or Mishu Kaku. The pleroma that's holding it all together is female. So in essence, God is female according to the Gnostics. Certain Gnostic sects. Like I said, there are many people talking about many things. There were people in Egypt. There were people in Greece. There were people in Egypt. The mystery schools were in Egypt. That's part of why they are you know, the giant triangles, pyramids, and the pyramid tetrahedron, which is a four-sided pyramid, is going into my property. It's called Scorpius XL. This narrative could be a film unto itself. It could be an episode of any show, right? And I am here to get work. I'm here to work. I go online and I fill out job applications. I'll work at Subway. I don't care. I'll make sandwiches. I'll flip pies. I love making pizza. That's what I love doing. I love actually working in the kitchen. I really do. I honestly do. I'm no Bourdain, but I can tell you something. I could tell you something, that a man like Bourdain, who's got a 2-year-old child, might not be as self-harmy as we think. And knowing what I know now, what they pulled on me through this device, I was talking about it yesterday, and listen, I'm not talking about Zuckerberg. What I did was I was able to decipher. Now, Zuckerberg and Francis Haugen, who just did a talk here in LA, they're on almost the same level. They talk their jargon. They can do what they want. Where I'm at is I'm more on a street level. I'm on a drug dealer level. I'm on a undercover police officer level. Okay? I'm on the ground. I'm street, man. Okay? Excuse me. But I have a mind for patterns and a military mindset, even though I never went into the military. You understand? And a lot of men have this mindset. Okay? I grew up with all women, and they poo-pooed everything I had to ever say. I told you, my sister, my oldest sister, who I love, revere, and respect, she told me, I was acting out one day, she said, Gordon, why don't you sit down and look at this? And I looked, and it was the Marx Brothers on TV, and I was about 5 years old, and I loved it. Okay? I remember things that happened in my life. Okay? And like I said, my oldest sister, she was a prodigy on the fiddle. She could just pick it up and play it. But in my family, we were so poor, we weren't able to, you know, take music lessons and do all this kind of stuff. I tried to take guitar lessons, but I had a fear after being molested. And I just had this natural fear because my dad wasn't around. I was really confused. And I didn't want to take the lessons from the guy. I got a creepy feeling from the guy. Whether it was found or not, I think it was my subconscious just being like a child's subconscious when a child is hurt. Like I said before, why would I ever listen to a person who's beating the shit out of me? I would more likely listen to somebody who's passing me a joint and saying, hey, listen to this record, it's fucking awesome. Here. Right? Wouldn't you? When you're a kid? And now the fact that I was getting arrested in high school and all this weed is legal now. I had some kid on one of these last jobs I worked trying to tell me that our body temperature won't set off the THC in the weed. Okay, buddy, in the 70s there was a little something called pop brownies. I remember eating 2 joints in the 1980s and I got loaded off 2 joints. What this kid is doing is he's sigmaing out and he's believing the narrative. Now, the narrative is actually true. It's because they're growing the weed differently than when they used to grow it, than how they used to grow it, okay? For good or for evil, we are accelerating into this future, guys. Did I mention that John Lennon said he shoot Coca-Cola? And what song did he say that in? Come Together. That was the song. And what song did he get in trouble for? Writing Come Together. Why? Because he's showing up late to band practice. He doesn't have any songs ready. What is George Harrison doing? What is Paul McCartney doing? They're actually showing up with stuff. What is John Lennon doing? How come he's not showing up with stuff? How come he's showing up late? How come he's got such a smart mouth? And he does, right? Because he's rolling with another set. Where did John Lennon show up? John Sinclair, to help out John Sinclair, 10 for 2. Who was he with? The MC5 in Detroit. Dope, fucking, no, it's dope, guns, and fucking in the street. That was the MC5's credo. Dope, guns, and fucking in the street. Right? So they were anti-establishment. And we already know that the feds, these Fed rats, who I call them, were following John Lennon around because we have them. They made an entire documentary about it. They released the files, released the FBI files on John Lennon. They sure as hell did. Can you imagine the book that would come out now? Right? This is why it's important to tell the truth. This is why the truth is more important than any lie or any hoarding or anything. And that's what this online cancel culture is all about. It's about not being honest. Don't you think it would be interesting as hell? Like I said, Gavin Newsom, he was on that dusty old Sean Hannity show, and it was one of the greatest things. Gavin Newsom was laughing in Sean Hannity's face. It was the best. That dusty old, what does he look like? He looks like the shaggy dog, the shaggy DA. That zealot. Okay? What's great is getting people together from opposing sides, not sitting there and being indoctrinated by your AI. And that is what is happening at very specific companies. I was victimized past tense by this. I was canceled. They ran self-harm ops, and it was brutal. I thought I was losing it, and that's what they were banking on. Okay? They, meaning the Fed rats who were involved. Like I said, I am not on the social strata of Frances Haugen, the Brookings Institute, Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not putting those people down, and I'm not saying they're the enemy. Klaus Schultz is, he's going to make us eat bugs. It's all rather reactionary and rather childish, in my opinion. Okay? Let's talk practically about what's going to happen. Let's talk about I really want to talk about my project, and we will, right? Let's talk honestly about where we're heading in this accelerationism. Now you take a look at this hipster, Aldous Huxley, and what did he do? What did he put in his book? He was talking about children being able to do what the hell they want. It's very reminiscent of what's happening now, right? And I believe what they're trying to do, they meaning those involved, like I said, when they came at me through the Facebook app, I'm not going to blame Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not going to blame anybody like that, because I know that they were on the ground Fed rats, and I know it was local, and I know it had to do with, well, many things, but part of it had to do with an ecstasy dealer in New York in the 1990s. Okay? I only did ecstasy like a few times. It was really good. It was like acid. If you want to microdose. They talk about that stuff, right? The walls of perception, or I'm sorry, the doors of perception, where the Doors got their name from, Aldous Huxley, right? The 27 Club. We talk about all the same things on this show. That's why there's no reason why this show can't grow. And again, whether it grows or not, I don't know. It's not up to me. It's up to the algorithm in YouTube. All hail the algorithm on YouTube. I'm not here to get monetized. If I'm hungry, I'll try to eat the best I can. I'll try to get a job the best I can. I'll try to do what I can. But in the meantime, what a lot of people don't understand is that people like me and others like me, are there any others like me? Where are you, please? We need a creative outlet. This is why they have art in school. And if you were really worried about a child's education, why don't you just let the child know that it's up to them to continue to educate themselves after they get out of school? Because I tell you something, I probably learned more in the next 4 years after I quit going to school than I did inside the school. Okay? What we used to have to do, we had books. We'd have to take these books home, and we would sit there and we would do the same equation over and over again. Or we would write an essay. I was more of an essayist. My book was originally called Two-Legged Animal, Noir Essays from a Detroit Punk. I already got into the etymology of the word punk. It just means greenhorn. It means kid. It means child. Right? And I actually used a photo. It was a photo of me that I took with a former girlfriend of mine back in Detroit. I contacted her on Facebook to ask her permission back when I was married. She never got back to me. Guess when she got back to me? Right before I was going to delete the Facebook app in order to keep me on Facebook. I implore you, years in the future, take a look at my case, and you'll be able to find out a lot of what's going on behind it. That's why I don't have any respect for people using my likeness in a murder article. And the best part about it is, and I'm going to get into, it's our half an hour mark. I'm going to get into Scorpius XL right now. In 2021, the greatest punk rock band in Detroit that was voted by the Metro Times happened to have a kid in it whose mommy writes for the neighboring paper. In 2021, the greatest punk band from the 1980s, his mommy writes for the fucking paper. And people in Detroit, they're like, oh my God, it's amazing. They'll never make the connection. Michigan, they'll never make the connection. Don't forget, paper swallows rock. Yeah, there you go. That one's for you. The game's rigged. I always knew it was. It's a joke. I never got any support. Why? Because I didn't know my place. Apparently, it's a big joke that Native Americans on the East Coast are mixed race. Oh, well. I was called a splib. I was called, what else was I called? Burrhead. I was called a lot of things. I was called a lot of names. You know who weren't called names? Probably more than likely my sisters. Why? Because they're beautiful and gentlemen were being gentlemanly to them. Right? And there's nothing wrong with it. I like talking about my real life. But we all know that racism is fake. It's a created dialectic, just like men against women, just like left against right. Right? Now you can feed that. We can all feed this narrative, or what can we do? We can go to art class, we can go to AV class, and we can forget all the social studies. We can leave that to people at Timcast who dress like they're South Park characters, and they talk about sociology notions about sociology. What? Right? Why don't you just get all the way into behavioral patterns? Because that's the future we're going into, right? Take a look at some of my old episodes. Please, just scroll through. Please, clicky, clicky, swipey, swipey, scrolly, scrolly, likey, likey. Press on a random episode and take a look what I was talking about back then. Everything develops. You don't really hear me talk about this stuff too much. I try not to repeat myself too much, but sometimes I do. I've proven these things on this show. All we have to do is get someone to corroborate this notion of drug smuggling from John Lennon, and it would be huge. What are you gonna do? Be like E. Howard Hunt? You gonna die with a lie on your lips? Oh yeah. Right? Yeah, don't forget. E. Howard Hunt is represented, his archetype, in our society as who? Tom Cruise and Woody Harrelson. Oh, look at the difference. Woody's funny. We all know that Woody's naturally funny. He was on Cheers. We all know that. He's just has a natural, good old boy, funny kind of demeanor, right? And he's a big goofball, right? Apparently, right? Is that E. Howard Hunt? Big goofball. I'd love to watch all that stuff. I don't. What I do, and by the way, I'd like to thank Starbucks. Where is that? I wish I could break out with that. I want to show you guys this. Don't look at my... I cut my own hair. Shut up. I don't think I can get to it. Ugh. I got to do it just for you. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I drink tap water and I drink this. Yesterday I was able to read quite a bit. I did quite a bit of reading. If I don't have some type of caffeine or something like that, I'm not firing off on all my cylinders. It's really tough. It's really tough to get going. You know, I mean, you get older, and I wonder how much of it was coming through this device. This device is a neurological stun gun, and it's worse than a stun gun. It melts you, and it could put you in a behavioral health center. It could probably melt your brain so bad that they could declare you brain dead and kill you. Okay? So this is the future that you're going into. Let's not forget that. And we need to talk about some of this stuff. Right? And in a cogent manner. I just threw that out there. Nobody cares. Okay, now we're going to get into Scorpius XL. We're at the half-hour mark. I come on here every day, God willing. And don't forget the pleroma that surrounds God's creation, which is why God would be the grand architect of the universe. Why? Because there's something already there to architect. And the pleroma is female. It's holding the womb of the entire universe. Therefore, it's the God above God. That's why they called the regular God that we all go to church and worship the blind idiot God, right? In the same way that Dostoevsky used the idiot. He doesn't know. And that's why he said, what? Wait, what? I'm not the God? Wait, I created all this. What are you talking about? Right? Again, if you're going to go by these literal translations, then yeah, you can be like Louis C.K. You can come out in a stained shirt. You know what? Mine's not that stained. Louis C.K. has like millions of dollars. He comes out on stage. He looks like shit. He doesn't shave. He's got a big stain on his shirt. I mean, is that sending a message or what? And this guy's a millionaire, right? And what is he doing? He's deconstructing the Bible and taking the mick out of the Bible. Well, we don't do that here because we're harder, smarter, better, faster than these guys can ever be. Okay? I'm a new person on the scene. I'll go on to anybody's podcast. I don't care. I'm not worried about anything. If I said the wrong thing, oh well. I keep going. I come on and I do an hour show every single day. Right? I'm homeless. I eat off the EBT menu right now until I can get a job. I'm always looking for work. And what we're talking about right now is Walter. And I love this character. You could actually take Walter's life and make an entire film about it. You wouldn't even need the punk rock band. You could actually take the punk rock narrative and you can make an entire film or series about it, and you wouldn't even need Walter's life. But the fact that you're going to marry these two together is going to take our minds into the next realm. Now, and the guy's name was Don Murphy. Did I tell you guys? I made a mistake. I was calling him Tom. It's Jane Hampshire and Don Murphy. They worked with Oliver Stone to produce Natural Born Killers. Natural Born Killers was a script that Tarantino wrote. He got the idea from an African-American guy he was hanging out with. He said it was one of his mom's boyfriends or something like that. Okay, and it was about the Manson industrial complex back then. Okay? And about this media sensation. And I really love the part in there about the American Indian where he goes, they let him stay on the American Indian reservation. And he goes, they have the media sickness. Do you remember this? I always talk about the trilogy of films from Oliver Stone. I love all of his films, but some more than others. We all know that. But this little trilogy of films. I love people watching. We're just going to leave it at that. No more Roy Stannis. Big news! Ray Winstone, I was just talking about Winston cigarettes. I used to smoke Winston. Ray Winstone quit smoking and he does manual labor while he's waiting for the writer's strike to be over. He's 66 years old, yeah! Ray Winstone, one of my favorite actors. Take a look at my playlist. It has cinematic expressions. I might cry. I remember when I saw Nil by Mouth. It's on my playlist, and that's how I grew up. And I talk about my sisters because I love them. I talk about my family because I do love them. You can't do anything about it, right? That's where ambivalence comes from. It's a love-hate relationship. You're going to have it, but you could step up and act like adults. I don't understand why my 3 sisters graduated top of their class and they can't even watch a movie with me. They can't have a conversation with me. I am telling you, it's because they never dealt with this male archetype. And if you want to see this male archetype that we came up with, take a look at Ray Winstone in nil by mouth. That's how we came up. That was my neighborhood. But yet, Gary Oldman grew up in the same neighborhood across the pond. Why? Because these are archetypes, these alcoholics, this alcoholic behavior that I had, where you're acting out of control. And you're going to cancel me, son? You're going to wish you never did. So, just to wrap it up, we got 20 minutes left. I do an hour episode every single day. I do it live, right? O'Reilly style. Fucking we'll do it live! Don't forget, the internet is a series of tubes, and that's why I'm on the YouTubes. That's right, I like having fun, but we're not having fun these days. It's a little stressful, and, you know, I'm nothing but honest on my show. I can't stand liars. I just can't. And that's what these, what are they, you know, I call them obsequious Philistines, but they're incredulous. They got that incredulous look on their face. They're human bobbleheads. I was married to one, okay? My wife was actually attacking me neurologically whenever she felt like it. And I couldn't figure it out. And it caused me to have severe damage. I believe probably more than likely, maybe brain damage. I don't know. That's how I felt. And take a look at me as a child, you know, being beaten, threatened. The worst part was being threatened and scolded. Hey, man, how come we can't just have a conversation? And I would explain to you, one of the first things I did, boy, I wish I could get a dog. One of the first things I did was when I was told to steal an ice cream, I didn't know what stealing was. I was told to steal an ice cream by a girl who was acting out because she was mad. Our mother was coming over and sleeping at her house when our father was beating our mother. What's the first thing I did? I told on myself. I go, something isn't right here. Something isn't right. And what was I being? I was being honest. Okay? And so we talk about a lot of things on this show, and I'd appreciate if you could leave a comment. I could appreciate if you share the show. But guess what? If our audience actually shrinks, I don't care. I'm going to come on here, and I'm going to do my show every single day, regardless. All right, I said that. Okay. So, I love that bark. Anyway, so Walter, I love the story of Walter. Don't forget, he starts off in a fascist country. He steals a bunch of B-roll footage, takes all his notes, gets in a steamer trunk. His uncle, who's more artistic, his dad is more chemicalistic. I got some great scenes planned out for that too. It's their corporation gets usurped by the fascist government who's coming into power, and he escapes. He leaves. Okay? He comes to America, and he falls in the lap of Jerry. Yeah, it's just happenstance. Luckily, everything works out great for him, like a lot of people in this world. Unlike me. You can see I'm homeless. I don't really care. Life goes on. Because I believe in my project, I believe in myself, and I have the utmost confidence in the world. Because I knew the people that... Still gets my ire, and it will until the day I die. I don't appreciate it. We're not animals. And the people I know were involved in this. And again, that's what I'm saying. I don't blame Zucky or anybody. It's the people who work there, and I already proved it in yesterday's show. Please take a look at yesterday's show so I can stop talking about it. So Walter comes over. They make a great film. He saves the studio. Yeah, he's a big hero. Then he comes out with Pork Chops and the Who's Gal, right around the same time as Concrete Jungle and Killer's Kiss. Right? Just like Robert Zemeckis. We're kind of working this into a real life schmangy. Right? Then he hooks up with Jeremy Cloud, who's introducing drugs. He is like a Aldous Huxley. He's like Carlos Castaneda. He's like Alan Watts. all wrapped up into one. He's a beat. He has Birkenstocks, and he dresses in a poncho, right? He dresses like he's from Peru, from a Peruvian village. And everybody else is wearing sharkskin suits. Ooh, I got to get out of here. The ladies are here. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. So, right? So he does 2 films with him. Now he's scrambling for what to do next. And so he meets, again, he's being coaxed into this, right? Just like these guys were trying to set me up down in Florida, right? Doing this whole thing with it's just so gross, man. I mean, these people, everybody thinks they're 00 Kevin. They set you up. It's really disgusting. I mean, I just really can't fathom it, man. But anyways, we could get into that a little later. If you need me to come on your podcast, I'll go on anybody's podcast. I don't really care. Just contact me, man. I ain't worried about anything. I'll back up everything that I have to say. 100%. So, Walter is left. He doesn't know what to do, and his wife is reading sci-fi. The guys in the studio recommend he does sci-fi, and they hook him up with a professor. Now, maybe this professor, because I was thinking, because at the time I was talking about the Dasein, which is like our being here, and how we have to say philosophically, hey, maybe I'm going to follow this tradition, or maybe I'm going to follow this religion, or maybe I'm going to be an academic atheist, or maybe I'm going to do this, or maybe I'm going to do that. Well, it's about our being, and the one thing that we can't deny is that we're all being here. We are all here right now, right? And again, that's why all this division and derision doesn't really make much sense now, does it? If you want to have that stuff on your orthogonally, and you want to be wrapped up into the AI that's ascribed to you, you want to clicky, swipey, scrolly, likey, that's your business. But please, have some perspective, okay? Because everybody's just falling into place. These narratives are created, and you're just accepting them. Okay, this is what I am. Oh, I must be alt-white. I must be over here with these people. I think we're complex beings. I think too many people are talking like they're bureaucrats, and they have no business talking like sociologists and bureaucrats. I think we're embracing this, and I think it's a wreck, and I think it's wrong, and I'll speak out about it every single time that I'm not talking about Scorpius XL. It is Scorpius XL week. I might go long. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? So Walter, all right, finally he decides to make this epic Stanislav Lem style Tarkovsky film called Scorpius XL. And why do they call it Scorpius XL? XL is a play on words. There's four involved, there's 4 astronauts, and okay, they're told that it takes 20 years to excel into space. It's a pretty easy narrative. They're going to excel into space, and they're going to lose 20 years. So when Jose, the family man, that's 4 astronauts, he's the family man, he has to have a talk with his children. His children are like 5 and 6 years old. Okay? Hey, how you doing? We got 1 watcher. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, this guy was in a commercial. He said the people there were super civil. That's great, man. That's awesome. Like I said, instead of working for these trucking companies and this art handling company where I was treated like absolute garbage and I don't appreciate it, and I'll remember it and I'll keep it in mind, I could have went down to Central Casting. Right? So anyways, I could have just worked there. You just show up. It's something that I was familiar with. I did it in the 90s. It was no big deal. That's why I can't understand this animosity between people in Detroit that I came up with. Yeah, I think you messed up big time. Because I'll call these people out every single time. So Walter starts working on the script, and he has to work with this professor. and he has to get everything right. And in the script, you have the 4 astronauts, okay? And you have the family man who's told that he's going to be back in 20 years, okay? And then they have something called mechatechs, okay? And these mechanical technicians are actually robots. And these robots can float. Obviously, they don't need oxygen, so they can float out in space. And at a halfway point, what they're doing is they're building, it's like a tetrahedron. They're building a 4-sided square, a 4-sided triangle, right? And once they build one, then they build another one because it's the exact replica. And where does it match? Boom. Just like a 3-sided triangle, the bottom, right? The bottom here in Egypt on this planet sits on the bottom, right? It's still 4-sided. Sometimes they'll have the bottom and then 4 sides on going around. But this has 4 sides and 2 of them meet, right? When they build 2 of them, now you have another shape. You have one of, you know, these forms. And then what are you going to do? You're going to build another one, and it's going to come together. Okay? Boom, it's going to fit right there. Smack, bam, just like that. Fits perfectly, right? And then sorry. Then, right, they're going to keep going. This is the space station that they're going to meet, okay? So they're going to fly the rocket out into space, and this rocket was perfected by who? Werner, who also escaped from he's featured in Of Reasonable Service. Okay, so this is like having Dr. Strangelove, who's in a wheelchair, in 2 films. Okay, it's like Peter Sellers. It's the same thing. He's using Peter Sellers in his very first film, then he's using Peter Sellers again in Scorpius XL. It's the same actor, and you can see the timeline. He's going to be older, he's going to be gray, but he's the same guy. And nobody else has done this before, and it's incredible. And that's why Walter's film, it comes out in 1963, and they're like, whoa, did you see what this guy did? It's called an Easter egg. Sorry, I don't mean to come in so close. I have to work on my posture. Okay? And so this is what the narrative of the film is about. Now, when I talk about the film, you're talking about watching. You're watching this narrative, okay? You're watching this narrative, and you're watching Walter's life, okay? So, again, I always say it almost every episode, you never see him make the film. Never. You see his life while he's making it, and you see the end result. The end result are 7 films. Then in 1969, around that time, then you come into the 1970s exploitation. And right around that time, you have a character working with Walter who goes off and starts making his own films. His own films are called Thug Wife and Brother. Okay? And those are the 2 films that are going to bring us in the rap aspect of this. And this is going to be around the time of conscious rap meeting gangster rap, where it gets kind of dangerous a little bit. But you're talking, that's another decade away from where we're at right now in Scorpius XL. It's one of the greatest stories. Again, it could stand on its own, okay? And what it's about is these 4 astronauts going to space. Now, one of them's dead. The Gus Grissom type character, the alpha male, he's like Elvis. Everybody loves this guy. Don't forget, this film comes out in 1963, and when the film comes out, they're using cars from that year, which means when they were shooting the scene, they had access to the prototypes of the cars that were coming out that year. This is the complexity and the world that Walter lives in. You understand? He has access to rockets. They have access to any of the military stuff. And he has access to these cars that are prototyped that are going to be coming out. And so again, he is like part of this social conditioning machine that's happening years and years and years in advance. Okay? And this is the kind of universe that we're talking about, right? And this you end up finding out when? In the 1980s, when the punk rock kids are all passing around a book about Walter. And they're all talking about this book about Walter. Why? Because you have to have this subplot going on. You have to have some of this stop sign dialogue. Now, don't forget, I put this entire idea that I'm telling you about right now, about a punk rock kid with the same birthday as Napoleon, and he begins to get a Napoleonic complex. I put that narrative into ChatGPT, and what it spat out was horrific. It was like the uncanny valley. I like that dog. It's cool. It was like the uncanny valley. It was like a grotesque mask. Right? So 4 astronauts go up into space, not 3. Usually I think they have 3. 4 astronauts go up. One of them's dead. And who do they bring in? They bring in the kid who was his replacement. Because in every single, major project, you have to have a replacement. You're not going to be training astronauts. And if, you have to have this replacement. And not a lot of people are thinking that far ahead in those times. And he shows you right in the film, it's like, yeah, we got another guy ready to go. Oh yeah, you're going tonight. And he's like, what? And it's like when they go get Martin Sheen's character in Apocalypse Now, and he happens to be drunk, and they got to pull him out throw him in the shower and tell him, you're going, bro. You're going on a mission. So it has that aspect to it as well. The MPs take him, they bring him to the launch pad. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're blasting off that day. And they have to blast off, when it's light out and there's a crowd around them, right? Very similar to Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks and Bill Paxton. Don't forget, Bill Paxton and Glenn Headley both died prematurely. I talk about a lot of Hollywood Babylon stuff on this show. It's very bizarre. And I'm not saying there's a there. I'm not saying that there's some nefarious aspect to it. I just find it bizarre, and I have every right to bring this stuff up. I have every right to form a hypothesis years after the fact about John Lennon being a drug smuggler. Because it sounds like he could trade in these little packs of opium, and he can get a hell of a lot of coke. He was singing about cocaine. He was showing up late, and he didn't have any songs ready to go. And what did he do? He stole a song from Chuck Berry, and he had hell to pay because of it. Okay? And so we know that it's not just one thing. It's not, he didn't get shot because he stole a song. He didn't get shot because he's a drug smuggler. It's levels. And they build, and they build, and they build, and they build. Okay? And they began to realize that, hey, maybe they can make more money off somebody from a tragedy. Okay? Take a look at these trials that I talk about. Gwyneth Paltrow. Isn't the Gwyneth Paltrow trial basically to see if she has any more star power? Does she still have gravitas? I mean, she's raised her kids, and they want to get her back into making films. So is this how they're introducing her back into our culture? To say, yeah, she was in some weird trial. Is it a trial? Is it a trial to check her KDD? Knowledge through data discovery? Are people clicking, swipey, clicky, swipey, scrolly, likey, Gwyneth Paltrow? We know what they feel about Amber Heard. And I was the one who brought up Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. That's what the Amber Heard trial was. That's what their relationship was. It was an antagonist relationship. And who did I have the same relationship with? Yolanda, an ecstasy dealer who was getting ecstasy from the Gambino crew. in New York in the 1990s. All my stories are true and real. I've got the best untapped imagination to ever troll into town. It is Scorpius XL week. I'll be talking about this property all week long. They go to the Scorpio, the tail of the scorpion in the constellation, where there's a star called Antares. And we'll be talking about that and much, much more on tomorrow's show. So thank you very much for watching my show. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.